In the last session, we looked at at Genesis and what it was that Satan did that stained every human being, that gives him an opportunity to get into the hearts of human beings, to get them so that they no longer see themselves as extraordinary, but as ordinary. Well, I want to now look at the specific things that he does to the human heart. But the way that he gains access is because of a desire that God has put on every human being. Remember, God designed us for relationship with him. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 22, it says, "What man desires is unfailing love." Now, let me ask you, if that's the desire of every human being's heart, what would be the source of unfailing love? There's only one thing: God. Every other source of love, if it comes from another human being, it sometimes fails. Because we all die, so you can't, how could you love someone from the grave? So that just doesn't make sense. The only source of unfailing love is God. And God has designed us to receive that love from him. We have a need in our heart. And he says, look to me for this unfailing love. Every human being is to look to him. Now Satan comes along as the father of lies, and he manipulates that need for love. And he manipulates that in a way that he sows lies into our hearts to get us to not see ourselves as extraordinary, but as ordinary. As I say, mundane, plain, just worthless. John 8:44, Jesus said, "You belong to your father the devil. You want to carry out your father's desires." He's speaking to the Pharisees. And he says, he's a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth. For there is no truth in him. He lies. He speaks his native, when he lies, he speaks his native language, and he's a liar, and he's the father of lies. That's what Satan does. He gains entry into our heart because of our need for love. And that need for love is expressed in 7 very specific ways. And Satan manipulates those 7 ways. By manipulating us at our very basic, most fundamental need that we have in life, then he begins to set lies in there so that we don't see ourselves the way that God has designed us. The first need of the human heart, the first way that we perceive love, is the need to be heard and understood. Every human being has a need to just be heard. First of all, a baby, when it cries, is crying to be heard so its mama will feed it. You know how much it hurts your heart when someone cuts you off and says, just say it to the hand. You know, just closes them off, closes their ears, shuts you down, cuts you off. It hurts because it's a very fundamental need of your heart. It's how we perceive love, to be heard and to be understood. Now, Satan manipulates that in ways. In my life, and I'll give you a specific example. I come from a family of 7 brothers and sisters, 8 siblings. Every human being, every one of those kids, parents, we all have a need to be heard and understood. I get dropped right in the middle of that. I have older sisters, I have younger brothers and sisters. I'm now having to compete with older siblings to be heard. In my particular case, where I believe that I have a temperament, that I'm verbal, I process verbally, I speak, I'm generally articulate. So I ramped up my speech ability, and I talk more, I talk fast, but it ends up that I end up with a dysfunctionality in me that I tend to talk over people. I tend to cut other people off. I tend to think in terms of finishing other people's sentences for them. It's a manipulation of a very basic need of my heart that causes me to act in ways which are non-redemptive. Because I'm a verbal processor, then sometimes I just need to express how I feel. But unfortunately, sometimes that comes out in an ungodly way. That's how Satan manipulates my heart, through that one basic need. Another way to react is where I've ramped up my speech. I have a younger sister who everybody was older and spoke right over her, so she went in the other direction. And she became a very quiet person. And the message in her heart was that what she had to say wasn't that important. That's a lie. So she shut down, and she went in the other direction, and she's become a very, internal person. But the same need exists in her as in me, as in everyone, the need to be heard and understood. And if this need isn't met, then we will find ways, if it's not met in godly ways, we will find ways for it to be met. Another desire of the human heart is the need to be affirmed. It's the need to receive a message that you're okay, that you're measuring up, that you're making the grade, that you're going to make it, you're okay, you're acceptable. It's the need to be affirmed. In my particular case, I received lots of affirmations from my father when I worked. Because my dad's life, he was very much oriented towards work because he got lots of affirmations from work. So as a very young boy at 8, 9, 10 years old, as I worked with my dad would always praise me when I worked. But he never really participated with me in other activities and leisure activities and sports. So I tended I played sports, but I never got much affirmation from it. Where I got the affirmation was in work. So guess what? I grow up as an adult, and I work. To the point when I was younger, I became a workaholic. The way I showed other people how I loved my family was I work 12, 16, 18 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. But the message I was getting is, you're a good boy, Dan. You're really a good boy, Dan. Because that's how I got my affirmation. It's not that it was intentional. It's just that that's what Satan did, and he manipulated. So you have to look, how have you been affirmed? Have you even been affirmed? Are you still seeking affirmation? Because it doesn't matter how righteous your family is. Satan is the father of lies. We've been stained. We have a sin nature. We all have the arum. And he gets in there and he begins to work in ways to manipulate us, to set us up so that we behave in ways that are sinful and dysfunctional, that are ordinary, so that we can feel that love. Because it's the desire of all our hearts, Proverbs 19:22, for unfailing love. We need to be loved. God and God alone can meet that need in a righteous way. But because we don't receive it that way from our parents or from the circumstances that Satan manipulates, then we receive affirmations, we try to be heard, all these other things that results in sinful behavior. It causes us to act ordinary and not the way God designed us. In the next session, I want to look at the other 5 needs of the human heart, 5 other additional ways on how and the ways in which we perceive love.